Hello my friends, it's time to make the final approach to this project today and finish it. I took a few days break for another project to get more distance and stop thinking about my Jägermeister for a while. Some time ago, I can say before YouTube era, such an action was out of the question, because I always run one project from start to finish and only then did I start doing something with the other. In recent months, however, this is impossible and maybe it's even better. I have to prepare a big project for an important publisher that requires maximum commitment, and this approach to implementation when I can make films for you and a project for someone else, that is, running two projects at the same time, is the best solution. Another problem is the proper arrangement of the working day. In addition to regular work, I still have some household chores and only then I can sit down to models. I'm still hoping that I will be able to start building models full time, which means completely deal with what I love and give you even more content, but for that I need the support of my patrons. Therefore, if you want to be part of this group and do something good for the world, just support me with your hard-earned money. So then check out my Patreon and see what I have to offer. You will find there 3 levels of support, where on each I have something cool to offer. In short, I can say that for my patrons I prepare reports on daily work, articles, ask for their opinion and show advertless films earlier than on the official YouTube channel. In addition, there are a few other interesting perks of being a patron, for example a beautiful calendar that I will send for all my premium patrons. Check the link above. I think you won't be disappointed and you will see what other projects I do apart from those shown on YouTube. So please consider joining. You can find the link in the description of this movie. I think that a few dollars a month is no more than you spend on coffee or something good to eat. So I'm waiting for you on my Patreon. Well, today is the day to get back to work. As you have may noticed, wash is in progress. Basic wash is industrial dirt. In addition to the normal highlighting of all the recesses and details, doing washes on Zimmerit seems problematic. I decided to do it with a different shade and it will be light brown. In my opinion, it should be heavily diluted even if it's the same color as on the other parts of the model. It's just that a very light wash will work better here. It's almost certain that it will darken the color of the paint, so you have to keep this in mind. I always work on selected surfaces and immediately support myself with an accelerator. If you are here for the first time, you probably don't know, but that's what I called this device a long time ago. It's hair dryer. Thanks to this I can control the whole process and decide whether I need more washes or less. After finishing, it's worth taking a short break to let the model dry completely and to look at the results of your work with fresh eyes. It's very possible that in some places a rewash application will be needed, or even you will have to do it again on larger parts of the model. It all depends on your personal taste. And after a few hours, when everything was completely dry and the eye rested from staring at the model, you can immediately see that the model has darkened in general. It's not a defect in any way and it's absolutely not a problem for me. No wonder, because when applying wash on large surfaces of Zimmerit, it's natural that the color will change under the influence of wash, even in such small amount as you have seen. Recently I don't use oil paints too often in my models, but here, due to one color of camo, it was recommended and I can say that it's even necessary. I used some of the colors to brighten individual surfaces and left some to do additional dirt. My paints are a bit old and the oil is not so visible, so I helped myself with thinner to spread them well on the surfaces. Zimmerit limited the number of places where I could apply them, as well as all the stowage I put on the model. It would look much better if the model was bare, then the number of surfaces that are available for painting is definitely greater. But here I decided to arrange the work in such a way that it's as it is, so I tried to do as much as possible to add even more effects to the visible surfaces. This technique was shown on his DVD by Adam Wilder and he just used a one color Jagdtiger for this. If you have the opportunity to get this CD somewhere, I recommend you to check it out and consider whether this way of painting is right for you. Even on the wheels I added some brightening in different shades to achieve the effect you will see in the video with real Jagdtiger. It's all about the differences in the amount of light on the outer and inner wheels. Now the effect is very visible on the indicated parts. The dark grey barrel also got some light paint and it turned out quite interesting. Note that I applied really small amounts and after adding a bit of thinner the paint changed the shade of the base color nicely. The effect is great in my opinion. I used dark shades to do a bit of dirt here and there, but especially around the crew hatches and on the engine cover. At the same time this emphasized their shape and color transitions. Okay, enough of this tapping with oils and it's time to make some scratches. As you probably know, these vehicles didn't have much chance to prove themselves in combat, so the amount of damage should be minimal. By damage I mean hits, scratches, rust and whatever else you can think of. That's why there won't be too much work on my model either. The number of scratches will be small, so I decided that I will try to implement this idea. I used a thin draftsman marker to paint them. The color of the ink is black, but this isn't a problem because with such small dots it's almost unrecognizable. Working with such a tool has its advantages. Certainly a great advantage is that one touch is 1 point, so there is no possibility of painting too large marks if you don't want it. Of course you have to learn how to work with this marker, but in my opinion it's an alternative to a brush or hairspray technique. For me the marker was enough and I recommend checking if it will also pass the exam in your hand. On Zimmerit, mainly in case of damage to the coating, I painted thin edges with the base color to make it look more three-dimensional. Generally I wanted to achieve something similar to the effect of damaged Zimmerit that I saw on the Stück in Muzeum Pancerne in Kłanin. Check out my report to see how it looks on Zimmerit made according to original recipes by Tank Hunter team, link above. In this video you can see exactly how the surfaces of the inside of the road wheels are worn. And you can also see what I mentioned earlier, which is the visible difference in brightness between the outer and inner wheels. So, I wanted to do the same effect on my model, and the easiest way when the wheels are already mounted on is to draw the abrasions with a pencil and wipe them with a silicone tip. It may not be the most convenient, but there was no other option. With a little more dust and a bit of mud, everything will look great. Speaking of dust, it's time to put it on the lower parts of the model, more specifically on the trucks. I used a very easy and quick method here. Heavily diluted Tamiya paint plus water with a drop of washing up liquid was mixed in an old jar. And this is the difference between the finished one on the left and the only painted on the right. 3 coats are enough to create good looking dusty trucks without mud. The paint collects in larger amount in the nooks and crannies, and at the same time discolors the trucks. Simple, fast, effective and realistic. That's how I did it. After each layer I dried it with an accelerator and applied the next one. I applied a thin layer of the same paint to the entire chassis to dust the fenders and hull surfaces. For a complete look you need to add some polished wheel marks, which is easiest to do with a pencil. It's worth remembering to polish all available places. I also rub the outer edges with a pencil and a silicone tip, and in this way both trucks are almost ready. Of course it would be best if they were movable trucks that can be removed from the wheels, but the thoughts of building them from the full model set made me sick. Just because the time I would need to spend to complete the whole set. Time is money, and in this case it would be very costly when you add the price of the trucks and the number of hours spent on them. Well, unless my wife would build them for me, which has happened several times in the past. Lucky me. Once I had the pencil in hand, I also polished the outer edges of the trucks and rubbed down the tow cables a bit. Remember to polish the metal ropes along the strand, not across. Thanks to this we don't expose the paint for scratching. Traditionally I decided to add a chain to the model. Of course not everything you see here, but one piece. And taking the opportunity I decided to use a metal blackening liquid on all the chains I had in my workshop. That's why there are so many of them here. First, I flooded them with liquid for blackening photo-etched parts, but it wasn't a good solution because it's not intended for all kinds of metal. So I dried the chains and re-dipped them in metal blackening liquid, which had evidently worked on all the pieces of chain. After drying, I cut off the necessary piece and gently colored it with rust pigment. After the slight rubbing, the rust is visible enough. I glued the chain on the model with 2 drops of pigment cement. I'm back to dust and dirt again. This time it will be stronger and the effect will be much more visible. At first a few bits of dry mud on the front of the vehicle. More to build some variation on the surface than to create any visible texture. That's why I limited myself only to those places that I'm soaking with Tamiya thinner. Initially the color is quite dark, but after drying it will be a perfectly dry matte. More work was done on the underside of the hull, where I didn't spare the pigment. As a result, I have a heavily soiled bottom with covered traces of round magnets. In addition, I added a bit of spill effect to diversify the appearance, although no one will probably look underneath anyway. But now it looks much more interesting. With the extra wet matte I could have built up even more contrast, but I decided to stick with this version of getting the model dirty. The top surfaces also received some dust. I applied it in quite random places so as not to create a uniform dust layer and to make the colors of the painting a little visible. I also dusted a bit on the barrel. Here you can clearly see how dirty it was on my workbench and more specifically on the cutting mat. Once a bit of pigment fell off, I didn't want to clean it up and so it went on. Fortunately, a bit of washing up liquid and a paper towel does the trick, so I'm not too worried about it. A bit of mud on the wheels will give them the right look, and I planned to keep it just a minimum amount so they don't look like I forgot about them while weathering. I did everything the same way as on the rest of the model elements. I am almost at the end of the Jagdtiger works. A few details have been added, such as wet marks on flat surfaces. A few drops of spill wet effect as dirty water I painted in the area where it was possible to spill liquids by the crew. The effect is very nice, but you have to remember that the spots should have round shapes as they are in reality. If you don't believe it, pour some water on the dusty surface and check how it looks. Finally, some oil leaks on the wheels, and I can say that this is the last element done on the model. Before we get to the last presentation, check out Diorama Devil's channel. I think there are some interesting things to watch, links in the description below. And that's all I wanted to show you today. Hope you enjoyed this project and this video will be useful to someone who built this model. In the next episode you will see something big. I think it's almost the same size as the Jagdtiger, something classical and modern at the same time. And you know what? This movie is now available on my Patreon, so you can check it out. You can also find out more about Jagdtiger because I have prepared superb HD photos that you can save on your computer and use for your own needs. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, click the like and write a comment. It will take a few moments for you to help me develop the channel. Do it for me, for humanity and for the universe. Stay tuned for new videos and posts on YouTube, Instagram and TikTok. That's all for today. See you next time. Cheers!